In this lesson, we're going to learn to play the song Brother John. Now before we start the lesson, I want to go ahead and play it through once so you can hear what that sounds like. Okay, now before we start the lesson, let me go over a few things. First, the song is in 4/4 time, which means that quarter notes get one beat and there's 4 beats per measure. So if you're counting the song while you're playing it, the count would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now let's also talk about the hand position for this song. So in this song, we can just use this basic position where our right hand thumb is on C and our left hand pinky is also on C. So basically your right hand, your thumb, first finger on C, second finger on D, third on E, fourth on F, fifth on G. The left hand is the opposite. The fifth is on G, fourth is on D, third is on E, fourth on F, and fifth on G. So it looks like this. Also, when I play this song for demonstration purposes, I might play with my wrist really low, and that's because I want to show you which keys are being pressed. I don't want my fingers to get in the way. But when you're actually playing, you want to have good form, which is curved fingers, wrist up high, and the back of your hand pretty flat, because this allows you to move around the keyboard pretty easily. So let's go ahead and go through this song. We'll start with the first 2 measures, which goes like this. C, D, E, C, C, D, E, C. And the count for that would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And as you can see, you're playing with your first finger, your second finger, and your third finger. Now, when the left hand plays just the C chord, it just holds it down for 4 counts. So basically the C chord is like this. Your pinky on C, your third finger, you skip your fourth finger, go to the third finger, play E, skip this finger, and go to your thumb, the first finger, and play G. So it looks like this. And all you do is hold that down for 4 counts. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 3 and 4 and here it is together with the count. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now the next part is Brother John, which goes like this. E, F, G, E, F, G. And the count for that would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now the left hand does the same thing again, which is it holds down the C major chord for 4 counts, like so. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So together it would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So now the next part, morning bells are ringing. Now for this next part, the finger position shifts slightly. So instead of this position where your thumb is on C, second on D, and so forth, you're going to take your second finger and move it up a note to E. And that pushes your third finger to F, pushes your fourth to G, and your fifth to A. So basically you're stretching your finger a little bit because you want to be able to reach this A. So then that would be like this. G, A, G, F, E, C, G, A, G, F, E, C. And the count for that would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And while your right hand does that, the left hand does the same thing again. That's right, you hold down the C chord for 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So together it would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now the last part goes ding, ding, dong, and your right hand shifts again. So now, instead of your thumb being on C, you're going to move your second finger to C because you're going to reach with your thumb down to hit G, because it's going to look like this. C, G, C, C, G, C. As you can see, I'm reaching my thumb down here, so I need to use my second finger for C instead. So again, it's C, G, C, C, G, C, and the count is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And as you guessed correctly, the right hand, or the left hand, I'm sorry, does the same thing, which is holds down the C major chord, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Except there's one slight change. Because your right hand reaches down to hit the G, you don't want to hit the G with your left hand. So you're going to play a modified version of the C chord, C major chord, which is only your pinky and only your third finger. So only C and E gets held this time. So it looks like this. So the count for that would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So together, so your thumb goes to C, it would be C, G, C, C, G, C, and the count 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and play it again with hands together, and I'll also give you the count for it.